The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect the policies and the position of Now You Know.
Good evening. Today is December 13, 2020, and welcome to Legal Basis, where we examine the country's most pressing legal issues with the help of our Filipino lawyers. On behalf of Jermaine Halandoni de Ruña, I am Shari Oliquino, and tonight we talk about the law. Paghuli sa Piston 6 jeepney drivers, kabi-kabilang pag-aresto sa mga miyembro ng progresibong grupo, pagpapatuloy ng territorial dispute sa West Philippine Sea, pagpasa ng kontrobersyal na anti-terrorism law, at pagpapasara sa ABS-CBN. Ilan lamang ito sa mga maiinit na issue na kinaharap ng mga mamamayang Pilipino ngayong taon, na patuloy rin na nagpapakita ng estado ng sistema ng hustisya sa bansa. Sa gitna ng lumalalang mga pag-atake sa mga karapatang pantao at kalayaan sa pamamahayag, iginigiit ng iba't ibang mga grupo na patuloy umunong ginagamit ang batas upang supilin o di kaya ay busalan ang mga kritiko ng kasalukuyang administrasyon. Hindi na nga ba patas ang batas sa Pilipinas? May pinapanigan nga ba ang hustisya sa kasalukuyang takbo ng ating lipunan? Ngayong gabi, susubukan nating tingnan ang kasalukuyang mukha ng justice system sa ating bansa, kasama ang ating panauhin na isang mamamahayag at isang abogado. Balikan natin ang ilan sa mga pinakamaiinit na legal issues na nakaapekto sa buhay ng marami nating mga kababayan. Kaya naman simulan na ho natin ang ating talakayan. Our guest is a Filipino lawyer and a journalist who currently works as a justice reporter at ABS-CBN. Good evening and welcome po sa Legal Basis, Atty. Mike Navallo.
Good evening, Shari. Thanks for having me. Good evening sa viewers mo.
Yes, maraming salamat po muli sa aming pagpapaunak sa amin, Atty. Mike. Ngayon po, sa ating mga taga-subaybay, feel free to join our discussion. I-comment naman ang inyong mga opinion o katanungan sa live Facebook page po ng Now You Know. Ngayon, first things first, attorney, gaano na ho kayo katagal nagtatrabaho bilang isang Justice Beat reporter?
Justice Beat reporter, 2 years. I started October 2018, just when si Chief Justice Teresita de Castro was sworn into office following the ouster of Maria Lourdes Serrano. Actually, ang nabutan ko pala was her last day, and then there was a search already for the next Chief Justice. A few days later, si Chief Justice personally pumalit sa kanya. So, mga 2 years.
Now, ano yung ilan sa pinakamalalaking challenges na kinaharap po ninyo bilang isang justice reporter? Lalo't-lalo na, no, halimbawa, you are reporting sa DOJ, meron talagang mga jargons o yung ilang mga terms ay kinakailangan talaga mas mapaunawa natin, no, sa ating mga kababayan. So paano po ninyo na-balance, no, yung ganung klaseng itsura kapag kayo ay isang Justice Beat reporter or ganung klaseng kalakaran pag kayo ay isang Justice Beat reporter?
Well, first, kailangan mo talagang aralin, no? You have to understand kung ano yung nire-report mo because you cannot explain it kung hindi mo naiintindihan. So, mahirap siyang i-simplify kung hindi mo rin nagigets o naiintindihan yung sinasabi. Ano ba yung kuwaranto? Ano ba yung pagbawi ng amnesty, for example? Ano ba yung konsepto nito? At ano ba itong konsepto ng publication pagdating sa cyber libel? So, mo talaga siyang basahin. And so, yun naman ang ginagawa. Every time mayroong papel, resolution, or decision, we try to read it in full para mas maintindihan namin. We can better explain to the public what is all about.
Okay. Now, sir, out of curiosity lang, you are already a lawyer. You may correct me, no, if I am wrong. You are already a lawyer when you started sa pagiging isang reporter. Now, my question is, how come?
How come? Why not?
Yeah.
No, I think if you go to the United States, ang dami namang lawyers who are actually working as journalists. And I think merong bentahe because mas naiintindihan nila. basta papaliwanag ng maayos yung mga issue na kinakaharap. So, I see nothing wrong. Except lang siguro in the Philippines, parang mataas yung tingin natin sa mga lawyers, parang iba yung tingin natin sa kanila kumpara sa mga journalists. But in my opinion, wala namang pinagkaiba eh. Siguro mas malaking sweldo ng isa, siguro mas tinitingala yung isa. But in the end, pareho lang naman ang hinahabol niya. You want to find out the truth to different forms. So, ito lang yung napili kong way of pursuing that. In a way, it's also public service without being in government. So, yun yung habol ko dito.
Again, very clear from Attorney Mike Navallo. Now, sir, in the past 4 years, there have already been 54 lawyers killed in what UP Law Professor Attorney John Molo called a silent epidemic. While there is no established pattern yet on these killings, ito po ay malaking numero na rin. In fact, kahit isang abogado lang no yung paslangin under a particular administration ay kabahabahala na. Now, out of these 54 cases, only 5 reached the courts. Now, what does this say about our justice system in the country?
Well, it's not just lawyers, no? Ang dami-daming cases ng mga pinapatay na hindi alam kung ano ang dahilan at kung sino ang pumatay. And so there's really a culture of impunity. And I think na-highlight sa cases ng mga lawyers because they are supposedly sila yung magde-defend ng mga ordinary citizens who are being prosecuted or who are going against the law. Pero if you're not able to protect your defenders, sino pa ang hindi mo kayang protektahan, di ba? So, I guess also alarming kasi judges, mayors, even congressmen are being killed. So, bakit nangyayari to? It's not just yung at the start of this administration, you started with those who are accused of having ties to drugs. Sila yung who end up dead and meron nilang mga placards na nanlaban or what. But you start asking kapag yung napapatay na are government officials who are supposedly better protected. So why is this happening? It goes to a very culture of impunity that's prevalent now. Walang napaparusahan, so many people are encouraged to actually just commit crimes. Patayin lang sila to because hindi mo nakahuli. So that's really unfortunate. I think the state bears a responsibility to protect its citizens. So sana kayang gampanan yung responsibility.
Actually, no, para lang din sa ating mga online viewers, no, kaya natin itinatanong itong mga katanungang ito kay Attorney Mike because aside from being a lawyer, he is also a journalist, no, sa Justice Beat. So talagang immersed siya sa mga issues. And right now, these questions po na itinatanong natin, I don't think isa, dalawang tao lang, no, yung curious, no, bakit nga ba ganito, bakit nga ba ganyan. So, maganda ngayon ay mas nabibigyang linaw sa atin ni Attorney Mike, no, kung ano-ano nga ba yung mga pagtingin niya lalo na sa kasalukuyan sa kalagayan ng justice system sa ating bansa sa kasalukuyan. Ngayon, sir, batay po sa sinabi ninyo earlier, would you think that our society has becoming more unsafe for lawyers, for people who in themselves in public service and so forth?
Well, hindi lang naman. I think everyone can see na it's really becoming unsafe. If you just hear about lawyers getting killed in broad daylight sa matataong lugar or even in front of their offices or lapit sa opisina nila, that's really alarming. Something has to be said about that. There should be police visibility and authorities should be the ones protecting these people. So it's not unfounded pag sinabing unsafe yung ating community these days because of this killing. Any unsolved crime should be considered an indication that justice has failed somewhere, and it starts with law enforcement.
Now, sir, I have a question naman po. Sa tingin po ninyo, ano ang magiging role, no, ng mga mamamayan? Kasi medyo nakita natin, no, the data tells us, no, na hindi lang mga abogado yung napapaslang, no? Ano ngayon yung role ng taong bayan, no, kung ganito yung sitwasyon ngayon ng lipunan?
Well, kasama yun sa, I think, responsibility as citizens na maging vigilant din. So if you hear about situations na merong napapatay, and if you are aware of any information na kunyari alam mo kung sino pumatay, bakit, then do your part and inform authorities para makatulong ka sa pag-solve ng crime, because authorities can only file cases if there's enough evidence, and kung walang witnesses, walang testigo, walang ebidensya, walang mangyayari sa kaso. And I think some authorities are finding it hard to pursue cases kasi nga walang magte-testify, walang ebidensya. So they really need all the help that they can get. That's of course aside from parang accusations that some of them could actually be behind it, but of course that's another thing altogether. Citizens, if you know of something, if you are aware of any information, then try to give it to the authorities para they can also use that in investigating the case.
Alright, that was very clear once again from Attorney Mike. Now, Attorney, dahil patapos na rin yung taon, let's talk about what happened this year. If you are to look back and recall 3 of the most challenging legal issues that you covered and reported about this year in 2020, ano-ano po ang mga ito?
Well, definitely that will have to be the shutdown, the ABS-CBN shutdown, because I'm reporting on our company. So andun yung we should be worried about our jobs, yes, but kapag nandun ka na, it's not about you, it's about the story that you have to report on. So kahit pa it has repercussions on your job, your security, you just have to do it and just have to report on it, and you have to make sure that you're fair, you are you give all sides a chance to be able to air their side, and at the same time you're not motivated by any ill will or ill motive para magiganti. You just have to do your job, and so we have tried at the very best that we can to fulfill that, but it's still challenging kasi even if you don't agree with what's going on, you have to report it. So that made it hard for us kasi, and also there's the personal involvement. You have colleagues who are actually involved in this, so you also have to consider their emotions, their thoughts, but at the same time you have to do what you have to do, that's just to report the story.
Actually, Attorney, I'm one of the people na talagang sinubaybayan yung nangyari ng pagpapasara or hindi pa-grant ng franchise renewal sa ABS-CBN. Now, merong pagkakataon, Solgen Calida was accusing you na ang pagre-report daw po ninyo ay talagang, kumbaga, tinitira nyo raw po siya ng sunod-sunod. And at the same time, I think Representative Marcoleta, ang sinasabi naman niya ay hindi ninyo kinuha yung kanyang side doon sa issue. Now, how do you respond to these claims noong ilang mga personalities na yon?
Well, una kay Solgen, I don't think there was an instance na I actually delved into personal stories about him. It was always about the Office of the Solicitor General. We reported about, for instance, yung involvement niya doon sa affidavit ni Bicoy. And for me, that was just, us doing our job. Unfortunately, nalaman namin na may involvement yung Office of the Solicitor General doon. And that has raised questions kung talaga bang role ba yun ng Office of the Solicitor General to be involved in such a filing of a case against the opposition, considering that Bicoy is not a witness, he is one of the respondents. So why is the OSG lawyering for one of the respondents? So for me, it's all part of the job, and we've always tried to reach out to the Office of the Solicitor General, pero they never responded to our request for comments. So hindi namin, kumbaga, wala kaming, I think, pagkukulang doon. Doon kay Representative Marcoleta, I did reach out. Lumabas naman yung screenshots that I tried to get his side. He said bukas na siya magsasalita. And then he was fully aware na lalabas yung story because I told him you will air this tonight. He wanted me to organize a press con. Pero as I said before, upon consultation with my bosses, we cannot do that for him. So ang sinabi ko, can I talk to your liaison officers or press people or media relations officer para sila yung mag-organize? so that we can conduct the press con. I was only asking for his side. Ayaw niya ibigay yung side niya if it's not going to be a press con. So we tried our best to get his side. Unfortunately, he didn't want to give a side unless based on the terms that he specified. Unfortunately, hindi naman pwede na ganun. We also have our own requirements. For instance, TV Patrol will also have its own requirements that tonight ito yung airing na story. And if we are not able to comply with that, it will have repercussions then and out of the program. So I tried to do my part. Of course, the decision to air the report is also with Patrol and with the bosses. And every step of the way, I consulted with the bosses about the story. So it's not as if single-handedly I caused the story to be aired out of vendetta against Representative Marcos. I have nothing against him. I don't know him personally. It's just that I found the story interesting. I think that every legislator who actually has a stand on the issue has to be fact-checked based doon sa kanyang stand before. So kung ang position niya before ay sinusuportahan niya yung renewal ng franchise ng mga companies na more than 50 years na may franchise, why is he suddenly against that now? Kung ang position niya before is, pwede naman pala paluwagin pa yung requirement, yung ownership ng, pwede naman pala palugin yung requirement for naturalized citizens to actually run for public office. So, bakit ngayon iba? Parang Filipino naman, dual citizen. Let me correct that. Kung ang position niya before is to ease the requirement for dual citizens to actually run for office, bakit ngayon sinasabi niya dual citizens cannot own mass media company? So, ano lang, fact-checking lang. We just have to be sure that our lawmakers are actually acting consistently based on their mandate, and that they're actually serving our interests. What is the interest of several congressmen in closing down a media company? That's something that's worth looking into, and so I think that justifies why we did that story.
Okay. Kahabol na question regarding that, sir. If I remember it correctly, si Soljan Calida, he was also, sinabihan din niya kayo, no, why not practice law? Kumbaga, lawyer din naman pala kayo. Ganyan. So, ano lang, kumbaga side question lang natin, no? In the near future, or kung kailanman, no, do you consider it practicing law talaga sometime in the future?
Well, I did practice law for about 4 years. I was in CC Law, the litigation department, but there's some things you realize during practice na sometimes you get caught up in cases na halimbawa, you wanted to recover this piece of land for a client. And in the larger scheme of things, doon ka nakafocus when the rest of the world is actually what? Kakagulo na? Because probably we were at that time, when I was in law firm, they were impeaching the Chief Justice. And yet, yung mindset ko was on this particular case, for example. To my mind, I would like to make the better use of my abilities and my knowledge by sharing it with the rest of Filipinos who are interested in knowing more about the law. And I can do this by being a journalist covering legal issues. I think mas marami akong mapaglilingkuran. I think I can reach out to as many people as possible and shed light on many issues. So it doesn't mean that just because I chose not to continue my litigation practice, I'm less of a lawyer or that I'm less of a human being. It's just that, we choose differently. Siguro yung iba gusto nila litigation lawyer talaga sila or partner ng isang firm because that's what gives them fulfillment. In my case, this is what gives me fulfillment. But in the future, I'm not closing the door to that, except that, at this point, I think we need to look at what's happening in the country more, especially in times when the interpretation of the law seems to be sometimes perverted. And I say this when, for instance, malinaw na impeachment lang dapat yung mapapatalsik sa isang Chief Justice or isang sitting justice or isang impeachable officer, but you have the Supreme Court actually saying, no, hindi, pwede na rin co-warranto. Malinaw din before na liable is only 1 year ang prescriptive period. After 1 year, hindi ka na pwede mag-file ng case. Pero ngayon, apparently, depending on the interpretation, pwedeng 12 years yung prescriptive period ng cyber libel, pwedeng 15 years. And we need people to understand what's going on. Kailangan maintindihan ng mga tao na may pagbabago sa pag-intindi o pag-interpret ng batas para mas may paki sila at masabi nila, tama pa ba itong nangyayari? And especially now with the anti-terrorism law coming into effect and being implemented, mas kailangan maintindihan ng mga tao na ano ba yung mga bagay na maaaring sakupin ng anti-terror law. Pwede ka bang mag-post at yung post mo ay ituturing ng isang kumbaga, terroristic act? And what are your rights? Pwede ka bang pumunta sa korte? Anong kailangan mong bantayan? So anong dapat mong ikatakot sa anti-terrorism law? So those are things na I think every time nagsusulat kami, may nanonood ng reports namin and they get something out of it. That's where we get our fulfillment. I think in my case, pag may nakakita ng report na nakita, ganun pala yun. At mas mag-iingat ako or dapat kong tutulan to. In my mind, that is fulfillment because that is part of the job that I set out to do. So, kumbaga, kanya-kanya lang yun eh. At this point, I think that this is what gives me fulfillment. If at some point I want to do something more and go back to lawyering, I'm not closing the doors. Pero I don't think na you have this, kumbaga, not everyone gets to have this opportunity. And so that's why I thank ABS-CBN and Ma'am Jing for allowing me to actually do this because sayang naman, we have a lot of lawyers actually have a lot of opinions. Sabi nga nila, isang lawyer, isang opinions. You have as many opinions as you have many lawyers now. But it's a rare privilege to be able to report on this and look at the issue closely. Kumbaga, may front seat ka to history, what's going on. So it comes at a crucial time when maraming allegations of human rights abuses, thousands have been killed in the drug war. You have lawyers, judges, mayors killed. You have several activists been arrested, and some have also been killed. Even journalists. You have a media shutdown. You have a journalist being arrested. Yes, she was arrested and sentenced, convicted. You have sitting senator also detained. So many legal issues are happening. So kumbaga, mas kailangan nating tutukan to eh. Mas may pakialam tayo dapat dito. And the more lawyers that we can get to actually cover this and do this job, the better. Para mas enlightened naman yung coverage, mas enlightened yung mga tao. And you actually get people who know their stuff to ask the questions that need to be asked. So, ayun, if there are other lawyers out there who want to follow a similar path, why not? Me, I'm just trying to do this while I still can. So if at some point I need to, move on and do other things for my personal growth, then probably go back to lawyering or go elsewhere. But for now, I stay here.
Yes, attorney. Katulad ng nabanggit po ninyo, no, talagang mahaba at naging matindi yung laban kumbaga no, with regards to the franchise renewal ng ABS-CBN. Ngayon, nasa punto tayo na tuloy-tuloy actually yung campaign ng iba't ibang mga sektor, ng iba't ibang mga grupo no, para maibalik yung ABS-CBN. Ngayon, para po sa inyo, gaano kahalaga na naibabalita natin no, ang bawat detalye ng pangyayaring ito sa publiko? Bakit siya mahalaga na pati yung mga nakasaad sa batas na ipapaliwanag natin? Bakit siya mahalaga na pati yung sinabi ni Representative ABC nalalaman ng publiko? Para po sa inyong palagay.
Well, hindi tayo makakabuo ng opinion kung hindi natin alam yung buong katotohanan, di ba? That should always be the premise. And I think very relevant to kasi ang dami ngayon gumagawa ng sariling opinion based lang dun sa nakikitang headlines sa Facebook. Which by the way, yung algorithm ng Facebook ay influence din kung sino-sino yung mga pareho ng pag-iisip mo, mga kalapit mo. So malamang para siyang echo chamber. Yung nakikita mo lang ng opinion, nakita ko rin sa kamag-anak ko to na ganito rin yung opinion niya, na-reinforce because of the algorithm of Facebook. Kayo-kayo din. So lalong napopolarize yung mga tao, yung mga pro-Duterte, ito yung tinitingnan nila kasi ito yung nakikita nila sa Facebook and even YouTube. Yung iba naman na anti-Duterte, ito yung nakikita nila. So, I think dapat makita ng lahat na importanteng tingnan lahat ng information out there. You cannot shut out a particular information just because galit ka kay Lenny, or you cannot shut out a particular information dahil galit ka kay President Duterte. And I see this on social media, sinasabi na, bakit yung pa binibigyan ng airtime yan? Sayang sa airtime, you're just, promoting misinformation. Ang sa akin naman, we should, kung kinakailangan talaga na i-air yung storya na yun, then fact check and put context. para lang malaman din ng mga tao na this particular statement was made, pero itong dapat na pagtingin dito. So we don't restrict a flow of information, except lang syempre kapag blatant lie and it puts at risk certain elements of society. For example, may magpapakalat ng bomb scare, it's a lie, hindi na-verify na, hindi totoo, then you don't put out a story on that kasi alam naman natin na magkukos ng panic. Importante lang, I think people should really learn to look at the issues, all the information, all the sides to a story before making a conclusion. At huwag magpapaniwala sa, for example, may influencer or may blogger, mas papaniwalaan mo yun kumpara sa isang legitimate news organization na may several layers of fact-checking na hindi lang ako. Pag nagsulat ako, it's not just me who's putting out the story. Merong editor, merong writer, merong several layers na pinagdadaanan para lang masiguro na tama yung information that I'm reporting. Whereas as opposed to, for example, a blogger, he can put out an information siguro parang misinformation, he can just write na si ganito, I heard, gamit ng word raw, but that's not verified. At kanino siya magiging accountable? Ako, if nagkamali ako, papagalitan ako ng boss ko, pwede ako matanggal sa pwesto, pwede ako matanggal sa reporter. But a blogger, for example, dahil sarili niya yun, who's going to make them accountable? Di ba hindi? So, ano lang to, hindi ko sinisiraan ng mga blogger, I'm just saying na may ganoong kaibahan sa pagproseso ng mga information. So, I find it unfair na sabihin mo na, ay, biased kayo because you are against the government. So, yun, I think there really needs to be more voter education and media literacy among our fellow citizens para mas maintindihan kung ano ba dapat talaga yung gagawin. And so, dito papasok yung role ng journalists to be able to report on all the aspects of a particular issue. Hindi dapat sinashut down just because you feel na kalaban or laging critical sa'yo. So, I think, and this is an appeal to government officials now. Instead of shutting down journalists who actually question your policy, who actually ask questions, why don't you use it as an opportunity to actually explain? Kumbaga, you don't treat us as an enemy. Treat us as someone who actually gives you the chance to explain. So, sorry for this. So, yeah.
Now, sir, I think this is one of my last questions na regarding sa ABS-CBN shutdown. Ngayon, ang malawak din yung naging suporta ng network during those times. Journalists, groups, and press freedom advocates actually say that this is a form of weaponizing the law, yung pagpapasara raw umano sa ABS-CBN. Now, do you agree to this, attorney? And if so, why? If not, why?
Well, hindi lang naman ako, no? There are several groups who have actually said that what's happening now is actually a weaponization of the law. And to be very clear, ang batas naman talaga is a tool. To begin with, batas ang ginagamit para i-prosecute yung isang tao, batas ang ginagamit para depensahan yung isang tao. So it's really a tool that can be weaponized. But when we say weaponization of the law, ginagamit mo yung batas para habulin yung mga kritiko ng administration. And many people say na totoo yun, nangyayari yun. For instance, yung kay Senator De Lima, ang daming allegations, coming from no less than the president, na supposedly she's involved in the drug trade. Pero 4 years on, nasaan yung ebidensya? The prosecution will say, okay, present namin sa court. But you have the side of De Lima saying na yung mga convicts are actually testified, even officials of people and AMLAC are actually saying na wala kaming personal knowledge sa involvement ni Senator De Lima doon sa illegal drug trade. So, what does that say? Bakit ang charge sa kanya conspiracy to commit? Una, actually, illegal drug naging conspiracy to commit illegal drug trade. So, it raises issues kasi. I mean, kahit sabihin pa natin, for example, kay Maria Ressa, sabihin nila, private, ano naman yun, private citizen si Wilfredo King. But the reality is that the Department of Justice has prosecutorial discretion kung ano yung magpapatuloy na kaso o hindi. And if you have issues na about yung batas na supposedly in effect, retroactively in-implement, then nasa prosecutor level pa yun. Ito ba natin to? Nangyari siya bago pa man batas, bago pa man ma-enact yung batas. But they found an excuse actually actually apply the law to marionesa. So you can say that it is being used. And nangyari sa ABS-CBN is hinirapan nila ng butas. We found we found out na from sources na yung pagpapa-shutdown sa ABS-CBN was actually years in the making. Hindi lang naman yun nangyari in February of this year na finala ng COA ng petition. Yung preparations for that came years back. So there's really an attempt to go after certain institutions, certain personalities. And if we don't watch out for it, who's next? Baka tayo na yung susunod, di ba? And it's unfortunate kasi ganito dapat, yung, hindi dapat ganito yung nangyayari. In a country, we are facing so many challenges. You have a pandemic in the midst of all of these. You have disasters or calamities na nangyayari yearly. The government should be more of a unifying figure, hindi divisive, na you create enemies out of certain aspects of your people, kung hindi drug addicts, members of the media. Now it seems yung mga lawmakers who are accused of having links to the CPP-NPA. So what's going on? Why do you demonize a certain aspect of to be able to move yourself? 21% support the population. Why do you need to consolidate support? And ano effect nito? Lalo tayo nagkakawatak-watak. In the middle of the pandemic, may mga bagyo, we need all the information we can get. You shut down your biggest source of information. Bakit? We have to ask. All for what? Because we offended the ego or the emotions of a particular person. Kailangan siguro nating maintindihan, no? I mean, anyone who's viewing this, whether you are pro-Duterte or anti-Duterte, just imagine this. Pwede ba na sa isang democratic country, isang tao lang magsasabi, gawin niyo to, gawin niyo yan, and that happens agad? Pwede ba yun? Are we in a monarchy na sasabihin ng king o ng reyna mangyayari? Sana hindi, because we have laws. We have procedures that need to be followed before something can be done, before a shutdown can happen. So, and hindi lang to sa ABS-CBN, it also happens in many other cases. Sasabihin lang ni President, okay, papatigil na yung operations ng, for instance, STL. Ititigil din, susunod din yung mga tauhan niya. Pero nasaan yung proseso? Were they given their right to due process para i-contest kung ano yung basis ng pagpapa-shutdown? And nangyayari dito sa Anti-Terrorism Act. Designating terrorists, the Anti-Terrorism Council can actually say, okay, terrorist kayo, posible na i-freeze yung assets nyo, posible na kayong ipa-aresto kahit walang arrest warrant, and posible na rin kayong ikulong for up to 24 days without charges. So how is that fair to, kung halimbawa ako yung arestuhin, automatic ikukulong ako for 24 days, automatic yung assets ko i-freeze without me knowing kung ano yung basehan nila for actually accusing me of being a terrorist. And so, and this same thing also happens with those who are being charged now with illegal possession of firearms. Na ang sinasabi na if their allegations are actually true, hindi sila nasabihan kung ano talaga yung crime nila. And there are allegations na tinaniman ng evidence. If totoo to, we should really be alarmed because hindi dapat ganun eh. Let's play by the rules. Kung walang ebidensya at hindi nyo mapakulong, then wala. But do not plant evidence. Do not invent a crime that's not there when the act happened para lang you can go after your critics. So sana hindi ganun.
Actually, attorney, nababanggit na rin po ninyo yung iba pang mga legal issues, no? Those na charged with illegal possession of firearms, nandiyan yung pagbanggit din ninyo sa anti-terrorism law. Now, let's go back doon sa ating isang katanungan, no? Maliban dito sa pagpapasara sa ABS-CBN, ano-ano pa ho bang mga legal issues ang kinover nyo this year na talagang naging challenging para ho sa inyo?
Well, the second one would be the Anti-Terrorism Act, yung mga petitions that have been filed against it because of the sheer number. So 37 petitions, and each petition, medyo mahaba yung mga filings. Siyempre, you need to read everything to be able to get kung ano yung bago dun sa petition, kung ano yung mga reasoning nila. That's challenging basically for us na nag-cover. ang joke nga namin, sana wala nang mag-file. Or sana nag-consolidate na lang sila. Sana nag-usap sila, 5 na lang yung final para mas madali, di ba? But I guess we cannot prevent people from actually filing cases. And also, that's also an indication actually na many really are against it. Kasi yung sheer number lang, no? And it sends a signal to the Supreme Court, uy, hindi nyo to pwedeng i-dismiss lang without comment. Because there were at least 2 petitions against the president, or against the policies of the president, na dinismiss lang without comment ng Supreme Court after a month of filing. For instance, yung petition para i-reveal, i-disclose yung kanyang health records, and the other one is yung petition questioning the protocols, quarantine protocols. Lahat yun dismissed without comment, without requiring the Solicitor General to comment on behalf of the Republic of the Philippines. So, ang bilis umaksyon pagdating nito. But what about the other cases? Request for TRO, for instance, ng ABS-CBN, sabihin nila biased because I'm with ABS-CBN. But, I mean, the fact is, international. Yung petition ng mga political prisoners, for instance, na makalabas, no, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, hanggang naabutan na nanganak sa kulungan si Reyna May Nasino, namatay yung baby niya nang mahiwalay. We covered that, and maybe that's the third issue that's difficult to cover, because kahit sino, whether magulang ka o hindi, kahit wala kang anak, pag nakita mo na a child actually died because iniwalay sa mother at hindi kinaya yung being away from the mother, walang breast milk, at hindi naalagaan because of alleged trumped up cases against those who against the mother and yung mga kasamahan niya, and hindi rin na-actionan kaagad ng Korte Suprema yung kanilang petisyon na mapalaya in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's heartbreaking. I'm not going to accuse the Supreme Court of injustice. I'm not going to accuse the Supreme Court of failing justice. I won't go that far, pero it's clear that they could have done something in the months. It took them 4 months, 5 months to actually release a decision which actually just said, ibigay na natin sa trial courts. Trial courts ang magde-decide. Sila ang mag-hear, hingi sila ng comment from all the parties, and what for? You could do that siguro in a week's time. Pwede mo sabihin, hindi sa amin to, trial court. If you look at, I mean, maybe unfair to compare it with the United States Supreme Court, pero they could act immediately on a lawsuit, for instance, from Texas, na tingin nila wala namang legal basis or legal standing ng isang state to question the election procedures in other states. If the Supreme Court can be that decisive, how come in this case hindi? So those are questions that we need to ask. Of course, hindi ko matanong sa mga justices, Justice, bakit ang tagal niyo? We can phrase it differently. No, we tried to ask that, which is Justice Peralta, and he did say na hindi naman daw sila nagpabaya, meron silang ginawa. But the reality is that it took 5 months or more para lang sabihin na hindi kami ang magpapasya lower court. And unfortunately, namatay na yung bata in between. How much blame can you put on the Supreme Court? I leave that up to you, no? So, kumbaga, kayo na lang mag-decide. Can we blame the Supreme Court for what happened? Probably. Yes, to what extent? Actually.
Ngayon, attorney, with all those things being said, as a lawyer and as a justice reporter, sa madaling salita, paano ko ninyo mailalarawan ang justice system sa Pilipinas?
Sana hindi ako ma-contempt of court. Well, it's hard to actually say if we have let's just say it's not as strong as you would want it to be. Some people have actually called it weak because ideally in the justice system, yung third branch of government is your last resort. If you feel oppressed by the executive, if you feel oppressed by the legislature, you go to the third branch of government to actually question their policies and hope that the third branch will actually side with you and then come up with the necessary remedy para matulungan ka. Kung kailangan maglabas ng TRO, kailangan ipawalang visa isang batas o isang issuance, gagawin dapat yun ng third branch of government, which is the Supreme Court. But the reality is that there is an observation that the current Supreme Court seems to be overly deferential to the executive, to the president. And this observation did not come from me. It came from one of the justices who dissented to a particular ruling. So if you have your own justices saying na bakit kayo differential to the president? We should be independent. And I could cite so many cases as an example, pero wag na lang, no? But the reality is that we are far from where we would have wanted. Uh, we are far from the ideal justice system that would protect the rights of every Filipino. And I think that's a goal for all of us, hindi lang for justices, hindi lang for lawyers who actually have cases before the courts, but for all of us as journalists, as citizens, na let's do something about it. Let's not let it slide. Hayaan na lang natin na itong mga situation na to will just happen na parang walang nangyari na, a baby river will again die because of inaction or delayed action. I trust naman the members of the Supreme Court also have their own personal wisdom as to why that happened, and hopefully sense of self-reflection in the future. We don't want that to happen again. So hopefully, I'm hoping for a better 2021 for everyone.
All right, sir. Ngayon nabanggit ninyo no, yung anti-terrorism law, etc. At sa lahat ng mga instances na iyon, merong mga nabibiktima. Earlier on, you stated na we are expecting it to be a bit stronger, no, sana, yung justice system. So kasama dyan yung walang ganong delay sa mga desisyon and so forth. Now, attorney, how do the victims stand a chance? Ano po sa tingin ninyo ang magagawa nila given the current setup po ng ating justice system sa bansa?
Well, just keep on trying. As long as the justice system is there, as long as the courts are there, just keep on trying. Kasi I'm seeing some hope, at least in some regional trial courts na who have junked mga cases, for instance, violation ng supposedly mandatory notice of notifiable diseases, mandatory reporting of notifiable diseases na ginagamit to actually arrest people who actually engage in protest. They jumped it because they said that that law is not applicable in this case. If you're seeing regional trial courts who are actually deciding that way, that gives you hope. And also, merong isang case that we covered, a trial court in Dumaguete actually junking a drugs case after they found out from CCTV na hindi pala yun yung nangyari as PDEA presented it to be, that it turned out to be a fake buy bust. You see some hope that there are some members of the judiciary who are actually still risking their promotion, risking their career, even their lives to actually uphold the law, and that should give us a sense of hope. And I think that is worth the risk of still trying to go to court whenever needed. Pero hindi naman yung trivial stuff. Wag naman natin overwhelm yung courts with trivial stuff. Pero yung mabibigat, like cases of abuses, for example, of authorities, I think we need to go to court and challenge it para hindi natin hayaan yung culture of impunity. And we go back to the start of this discussion, yung culture of impunity. Paano na perpetuate yung culture of impunity kapag wala kang ginawa to actually stop a single killing? So hinayaan mo lang siya unsolved and others will follow. Kasi sasabihin nila, hindi naman naparusahan si ganito namatay si ganito, pinatay niya si ganito. I can also do the same. And encourages whether or not kung sino man ang nasa likod ng mga pagpatay. Authorities ba, vigilante groups, or yung may personal na vendetta against those who have been killed, they are encouraged the moment they see na wala naman kaparusahan na nag-aantay para din sa mga pumatay at mutak ng mga pagpaslang. So we really have to get our judicial system, our cases working, from law enforcement, prosecution, to actually the courts, para mapakita natin na we are a safe country as we envision to be. That's a promise of President Duterte. 3 to 6 months, wala ng drugs, peace and order will be solved. But you cannot just get rid of drugs by allowing thousands of alleged drug users to be killed without actually looking at tama ba yung process na nangyari? Talaga bang nanlabad sila. And also, without looking at the other aspects, yung mga napapatay ng mga lawyers, judges, mayors, congressmen, sino nasa likod nito at bakit sila pinatay? And importantly, bakit hinayaan silang mapatay ng authorities? And ideally, kung gusto natin talagang parang Singapore tayo or a developed country, an incident is immediately investigated at hindi hinahayaang mangyari ulit. But we are far from it. We can work towards it. And sana, hopefully, we end up having the kind of judicial system that we actually envision to be. So sana we can work together towards that. And I hope government officials realize this, including the president.
So, Attorney Mike is sharing sa atin no, na there is hope so long as collective yung efforts, I think, from the people on the ground hanggang doon sa mga tao na in power no, or nasa possession. Now, Attorney Mike, for my last question, para sa mga kapwa natin na mamamahayag, any advice on what we should do to better understand the justice system? Kasi halimbawa sa kaso ko, no, I'm a media practitioner, but I also want to take up law eventually in the future. I'm very, very interested sa kung paano gumagana talaga yung justice system sa bansa. So, any advice sa mga taong katulad ko?
Well, just keep on reading. And every chance you get para magbasa, you don't stop at reading yung report lang. Report of one person, you read the report of another person, or you read the actual case, or you read the actual resolution. Paano ba din decision na ng korte, paano din decision na ng prosecutors. I think that will go a long way towards getting an understanding. Of course, if you also read basics about ano ba yung process ng pag-file ng case, ano ba yung concept ng inquest, kailan naman nangyayari yun, ano ba yung preliminary investigation. If you are able to read that, mas ma-appreciate mo yung mga nangyayari better. And I think that will also help in your reporting, because if you know your stuff, you're not just going to mimic and parrot and transcribe what's being said by, for instance, Justice Secretary or any government official. Kaya every time nagkakaroon ng press conference sa DOJ, we take it as an opportunity to actually ask questions and we challenge them in concept ng warrantless arrest. Ano ba to? Caught in the act or hot pursuit? Ilang days na ba ang nag-lapse since nangyari yung supposed crime? Tapos, kailan lang ba hinuli? Does that fall under hot pursuit or warrantless arrest? We question that because we want them to be able to understand. We want people to understand what's going on. And that's actually a way for government officials to explain rather than just end up getting criticized na bakit ganito. Talagang pinipersecute na talaga si ganito. That's actually a chance for them to explain bakit ganun naging pasya nila. So, for me, government officials should take it as an opportunity to explain and say their side. Anytime bigyan kayo ng mic, use it to explain your side. And be prepared for questions as well. Kasi kung wala namang masamang ginagawa, kung tama yung ginagawa mo, dapat you should be open to criticisms and open to contrary opinions. And trust na in the end, dahil mas stronger yung position mo, you will actually emerge more convincing to the average people. So I guess for us journalists, the only secret to actually being able to better explain legal issues is to read and study. So parang law student din. So could be your training to eventually becoming a law student eventually. So kunyari mag-receipt ka, so kailangan mong basahin yung case. So,
yes, definitely. Attorney.
Pero it's better to read.
Now, sadly, no, wala na po tayong oras, but syempre, pinasasalamatan po ng buong team ng Now You Know, si Atty. Mike Navallo, para sa napaka-informative na discussion natin tonight. Attorney, do you have any more closing words before we end the program?
Well, thanks for the opportunity to actually discuss legal issues and covering it. Bagay, in a way, it's parang cathartic eh. You actually look back at the year that was and look at the challenges in covering it, and it somehow gives you an opportunity to reflect kung saan ka nagkulang, where you could have done more, and kung saan ka you feel that you've done your best. At the same time, this is also an opportunity for your viewers to actually understand why it's important to look at legal issues and how these actually affect the lives of ordinary citizens. So hindi porket, batas-batas, hindi ko naiintindihan yan, wala na akong pakialam. It's actually important for us to look into it, try to understand it, para alam natin kung ano nangyayari. So, I guess this is not just for me, this is not just for you, but for the viewers. Alam naman natin what we are trying to achieve here. We just want a better country for all of us, including a better judicial system. I don't think we can achieve that by demonizing everyone or any group for that matter. We can just try to do our jobs, whether as government officials or as media practitioners, according to the law of the land. So, yun lang. So hopefully this will lead to a better 2021, better realizations for all of us. Media practitioners, government officials, and citizens alike.
Maraming salamat po muli sa inyo, Atty. Mike Navallo. At bago natin tuluyang tapusin yung ating programa, hihingi lang po tayo ng tulong sa ating mga taga-subaybay. Hanggang sa kasulukuyan po ay hinahanap pa rin natin si Atty. Ryan Oliva. He has been missing since Saturday evening, November 21, 2020. Any information about his whereabouts will be highly appreciated. You may contact this number for any leads. 0906-300-1009. Again, 0906-300-1009. At pwede po ninyong i-contact din ang isa pang number. It's 0922-860-1900, or maaari din po kayong makapag-send ng email sa findingattorneyryan@gmail.com. Muli, thank you so much for joining us in this episode of Legal Basis. You can join our Facebook group. Just search for Legal Basis on Now You Know. Catch us live here on NYK's Facebook page every Sunday at 6 o'clock p.m. And on behalf of Jermaine Halandone de Ruña, this has been Shari Oliquino for Legal Basis. Now You Know.